Check 1, 2. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Check, check. All right, what's up? This is Mike D, and we're going to jam for a bit while we get started and people kind of come on in. Hello, everybody. What's up? This is Mike Deary, and it looks like we're live, and it looks like we got a bunch of people coming in. What's up, Jack from Brazil? How you guys doing? So let me know if everyone could hear me and see me okay. Let me know if the audio and the stream is good. Been doing this for a bunch now, and I think I got it all dialed in, so hopefully everything sounds and looks good. But welcome, everybody. My name is Mike Deary. I teach guitar, and I got a couple websites, Rock Guitar Power and Super Guitar Licks. And today we're coming at you on YouTube, obviously. from our Rock Guitar Power channel. And I got a really fun lesson and a really important lesson planned today. What we're going to be doing is talking about playing versus practicing. And I got a bunch of stuff I'm going to cover on this, a lot of examples, a lot of ideas and things that are going to be able to help you improve and have more fun with both practicing and playing. But I am here for any questions and answers. So if you guys have questions or things that you want me to cover and want me to answer while we're here live, type it in the chat and I will do my best to get to anybody that comes in and asks first. So, but let's just jump on in. And we're going to talk about practicing versus playing. And it's a super important topic. I love talking about it. And it's something that everyone should have a very clear understanding, in my opinion, of both. And I'm going to preface this all because I got this idea to do this lesson today from one of my super active students on the guitar sites named Terry. And I love Terry. He's so... he asks questions, he gives comments in a lot of blogs. I could tell he's super, into it. So Terry, thank you for all your questions and whatnot. But anyways, the other day he sent me an email, or actually he posted a question on one of the lessons that was on Super Guitarlicks. And I'm actually going to read part of it kind of verbatim because it really illustrates the whole reason why I'm talking about this lesson today. So hang on a sec. Okay, so basically, he was saying that a possible problem just crossed my mind. Of course, I've set out to learn my scales and apply them to my playing. Yet I've never really that aware of the scales I'm using when it comes down to actually messing around or improvising with guitar lines. So to me, that's kind of like playing, right? And then if I am aware, it's typically only initially. Then the ear and hands tend to take the wheel. And on the other hand, if I focus on patterns and the relationship to what I'm playing, it tends to come out very boring and uninspired. Is this actually a problem? Or is it pretty much like that for any guitarist? Any advice? So the basic idea is that, and again, anytime anybody has a question about something, I guarantee you everybody else, if the majority of people probably have the same question. I have been asked this a lot. So the main idea is that practicing, you feel very kind of restricted. It's kind of boring because you're doing all this stuff over and over and over. And then when you get to playing, people think that they should be thinking when they play. And to me, that couldn't be further from the truth. So when Terry was saying that my ears and hands just tend to take over when I just play and improvise, that, in my opinion, is exactly what you want to have happen, all right? The whole idea, in my opinion, of practicing is doing things in repetition, learning a skill that you want to get really good at. And then when it comes time to actually play, improvise, jam, or just write, the whole idea is to not think, all right? The whole idea is to let what you've been practicing just happen, all right? Because in that modality, when you're in the mindset of just creating or performing or playing, the less thinking, the better, all right? It might sound kind of, cliche or cheesy to some, but, the whole flow state thing is awesome. It's definitely something that's very applicable to musicians and creative things. When you're in flow, you're just not thinking. You are just doing. You are just, in this whole different zone, and it's an amazing place to be. The whole idea of getting into flow is that you're not thinking. You are just doing. And the only way you get there is by practicing, all right? Now, I've always said that practicing is playing, okay? Because it is. But it's what you're setting out to do in that time that makes it practicing, okay? Because I'm going to give an example of a technique that I learned on nylon guitar and that I'm now applying to a song I'm writing on my steel string acoustic guitar, all right? And hopefully this will bring to life what this does in my world as a musician, and hopefully it could help you apply it to yours. And taking consideration, this is not just for guitar or piano or being a musician. In my opinion, the idea of practicing something can and should be applied to any aspect of life, all right? But anyways, let's bring this back to guitar. There's a group called Rodrigo and Gabriela, two absolutely incredible guitar players. All right. They came on the scene a while ago. And one of the things that set them apart so much was the rhythms that Gabriela plays, because she does all the rhythm work for the most part, and Rodrigo is doing all the lead and melody and soloing. All right. Now, one of the things that Gabriela does are these super quick triplets. All right. So it's kind of a flamenco rhythm, but it's also kind of jammy. When you listen to her play, if you haven't heard them before and you listen to their music, you will immediately be like, whoa, this is something different. All right. When I first heard that, it was a new technique that I didn't know how to do. So I set out the ability to be able to learn how to do it. All right. It was just cool for me, too cool for me not to learn how to do it. Let me just show you what I'm talking about, for example. And it's actually in the jam I was just doing. By the way, that was a backing track called Spanish Groove. It's on the jam tracks for both Rock Guitar Power and Super Guitar Licks, and I'll talk more about that later. But here's the way the riff goes. All right, super fun, tons of energy, so fun to jam over. Okay. Now, the technique that I'm doing and that I'm talking about are those quick sputter rhythms that you hear in between the groove. So in other words, so what I'm doing there is hitting one chord, and then I'm doing a triplet. Now, what happens is it's actually, and I'm going to actually link to the lesson that I found. I'm pretty sure it's still on YouTube. On the replay of this, which if you're on the email list for Rock Guitar Power or Super Guitar Licks, there's a page in Rock Guitar Power where I have all the replays. So on that replay page, I will post the link to the lesson that teaches you how to do this from Gabriela. She actually created a YouTube lesson. And the main idea is that she calls it kind of losing your wrist, okay? Because the motion is you're basically making two big movements, but you're getting three notes out of it. So in other words, I'm going down with my fingers. That's one. Then my thumb goes down, two. And then my thumb and wrist go up for three. So 1, 2, 3. But it's in a triplet. So if you want to say triplet, triplet, that's what it looks like really slow. And when I do it slow, it's very mechanical. It's very, it's very structured. You could see the movements. Bump, bump, bump. The process of getting this fast takes a while, but that's what practicing is, okay? The goal of getting this to be able to play it is that I practice it so much in a very methodical way that when I go to just play and write, I don't have to think about it. I don't want to think about it. It's under my hands, So when I hear a groove in my head, or even if I don't hear a groove and I'm just jamming, I could call upon this technique and it's just there for me. And that is the idea of what you want to do in practicing so that when you go to play, you don't need to think about it, all right? So, but basically to kind of finish off the lesson on this technique, the whole process is taking it and doing it slow a lot. And by doing that, your hand gets used to the motion. Because the whole idea, she says, to get it so fast is you actually have to lose your wrist. It's almost like if I were to do this, it looks like my hand is just basically wobbling around, which it is. But if you see me do this technique, all right, you can barely tell. It moves so quick you can't really see it, especially with, the video here. So the idea, though, is that even though it looks like my wrist just wobbling, I've practiced it so much that it is a controlled movement of a triplet. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, triplet. Okay, so now that is something that is an example of a technique that I knew I had to practice for a long time to get it to the point where my hands just knew it. The muscle memory after practicing it for so much, became to the point where now when I want to play something and I hear this technique, it's just there for me. Okay. So, and that's what happened with that groove. So when I was just jamming along, I found these chords. So it's B minor, and then it goes to G major, and then it goes to A major, and then F sharp major. All right, B minor, G major, A major, F sharp major. But now to spice it up, and then it's your typical kind of Spanish progression of B minor, A major, G major, F sharp major. All right. Cool. Does that make sense? Does anybody have questions on any of that stuff? And also, make sure someone writes in here that I'm actually, streaming good, then you could hear me. Okay, cool. So anyways, the idea of practicing, if it seems boring to you, you got to find ways to make it interesting. But one of the things that I tell people to do that I don't think people do enough is gauge progress and celebrate little wins, okay? When you're in this zone of practicing and you're doing the same thing a lot, it's very hard to notice how you get better, okay? That's why one of the ways I always tell people, record yourself. Nowadays, you have no excuse not to do it. You got a phone. Someone has a phone. Your daughter or your son has a phone if you don't. So ask them to record you for a minute or two. Record a video. Ask your spouse to kind of, hey, listen to this. I bet if you listen to you on day one that you start working on something, then you listen to yourself in a week or 2 weeks, you'd be surprised at how much better you sound compared to the first time you started it, all right? But on day 3, on day 6, you might not feel like you're getting anywhere. But that's practicing if you're doing it correctly, okay? In other words, are you using a metronome? Are you really kind of having a set thing that you're doing, all right? The other thing that, another email that came in that made me want to talk about this, right, was from another member called Leonard. His name is Leonard. And he was talking, another really active guy. Thanks a lot, Len, for all the comments and stuff. But he was talking about how busy, we all are. And procrastination. Everyone's a master at procrastination and everyone's super busy. So those two things do not allow for a lot of people to have progress depending on, your habits. But with that in mind, that means you got to be a little bit more vigilant than ever to say, I'm going to sit down during this one time that works for me and practice. What I recommend doing is like whatever time you set aside, break it up so that part of it is practice and part of it is playing. The goal for practicing is to be structured, is to repeat over and over with goals, with a metronome, with something that helps you progress during that practicing session. When it comes times to play, or when it comes time to do the playing, forget everything. And do not get frustrated if you keep doing the same things, okay? But the ways to get outside of that are to try doing something just a little different. Take something and play it in a different key. If you keep playing the pentatonic scale, but you keep doing it on the 5th fret in A, right, you're going to get bored. Try moving the same pattern up to the 7th fret and do it in B, all right? Use a backing track that has, some rhythm and then changes key. For example, on both sites, there's a blues jam on rockguitarpower.com. On the jam tracks, you'll find a jam track that's blues in A, okay? And then there's a jam blues in E and blues in D. They're all identical except they're in different keys. And that's one thing that you could do to start taking what you're doing in your practicing, move it into a world where you're just starting to kind of move just a little bit outside of what you're doing, or just see what happens. If the same thing keeps happening, it's all good. Once in a while, just out of nowhere, things break away and you do something new. It's really cool. I can't explain it. For me, that happens a lot. The more you practice and the more you play, it happens more and more. Okay. So anyways, by practicing, by setting up the time that you have to do both of these things, you get experience in what it's like to see what you do in your practice time come into your play time. Hopefully that makes sense. If that's too woo-woo, my apologies. Let me know out there if that does make sense. But anyways, let me bring it home to what I'm working on now. So you saw this technique that I started with. And again, because it's all with my nails and with my hands on fingers, it really lends itself well to nylon. However, I've been writing a new song on my acoustic, on my steel string. And let me switch over and we'll show you what it's looking like because it's incorporating this rhythm that I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm going to play What Do I Have So Far of this. And this is a song that's not finished yet. I think this is the first time I'm even playing it for anybody. So you all out there are the first to hear this. It doesn't have a name or anything like that, but there's a section in the middle that I'm pretty sure is just going to be a big buildup of rhythm and just really intense rhythm. And a lot of it is based on this rhythm technique that I've been talking about. And the whole thing that I've been having fun with is that, again, because I've practiced this technique so much in my practicing time, I know that when I just want to improvise and play, I don't want to think about it. It's just going to happen. And it's still happening. I don't know exactly what the rhythm's going to be or what the jam is. And you'll see that when it comes to that part of it. But the whole idea is that I don't need to worry about it. I just need to let it happen. And if I do it enough, I know that I'm going to find a combination of rhythms and chords and all that that really fit the whole song that I want to create. But anyways, let me just play which I have so far. The part I'm going to talk about is kind of in the middle. It's the last thing I'll do and just kind of builds up. The other thing to note is that, you know, it's a little bit different because now I'm on a steel string and I'm using a thumb pick. So I'm not using my thumbnail the way I was. But fortunately, it's pretty darn similar. It's a little bit more aggressive, you know, the steel string and the plastic pick, more tension. There's more volume. But also the pick kind of honestly jumps around a little bit more, so it's certainly not as stable as a thumbnail. But anyways, let me play you which I got, and we'll talk about it more after. And again, if you guys have other questions on this or anything else, let me know, write them in, and I'll cover it in a sec. So here we go. Let's see what happens with this jam. She might be dying out on me. Let's do this. Hang on a sec. All right, something like that. So I think the battery's kind of shot on this thing. I'll have to fix it later. Anyways, that is a song, a groove, and whatever that I'm kind of coming up with right now at the moment. And the whole idea is that, there was a lot of these rhythms. Let me switch back to my nylon so I could actually make sure you guys could hear the guitar as well. So again, that's a jam that, is turning into a song. All this energy that builds up towards the end. And so much of it is based upon the groove there and this rhythm thing that's happening that I've practiced so much that when it comes time to playing this thing, it just comes out. Again, I know the basic chords that I want to hit, and then the combination of rhythms, that's where the playing comes in. I'm not thinking, I'm just kind of playing, letting it happen and seeing where things go with it. All right. And I know there's been a couple sessions where I'm just doing it and then I try a different combination of chord and it's like, oh, that's it. That sounds so cool. When that happens and when it happens to you, that's the moment to capture, to celebrate, and to record it or just remember it. All right. Because I guarantee you, if you do it enough, something will happen in that time that you're playing and not thinking that something super cool happens. Right. And that's the moment to celebrate because I guarantee you that thing that happened, whatever it is coming from what you did during all your practicing. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, I don't know. I wouldn't consider it a woo-woo thing, but it is something you got to just let in. Okay. Especially if you haven't experienced it yet. So again, hopefully that makes sense. It's some strategies that, again, it's a mental mindset of what am I doing during practicing? What am I doing during playing? When you go to play, when you go to perform, when you go to improvise, in my opinion, the goal is not to think. All right? Don't feel like that. But the goal during the practicing session is to really just make sure you are structured, you are focused. If you find that boring, just kind of consider it your, the time that you got to put in so you can go have fun and play. All right? Because I guarantee you, it'll make your playing a lot more fun. All right? Any questions on that? Does it all make sense? And is this thing still streaming okay? Cool. So, anyways, the other thing, too, that I want to touch upon briefly, this was something else that Len talked about in his email to me. And he was talking about how he's got all these guitars that sit around and he doesn't have enough time for all of them. And again, it comes back to the time. Again, any of us that are on this are probably, thank you for being on this, and even if you watch the replay, thank you, because everyone's time is so precious these days. And, what you choose to do in your time is super important. And if guitar playing and getting better as a guitar player or any instrument or anything else is important to you, then you need to make that time to practice. And in regards to, Len was in his email was talking about kind of feeling bad that he's got all these guitars, but he's just always kind of playing this one, or he doesn't have enough time for all of them. That is everybody, in my opinion. All right. This guitar you're seeing right here, there was a period when I was really into nylon playing where when I was teaching full time or just any time, this is the only guitar I played for like 3 years. All right. I have like about 8 guitars. This was the only guitar I played for a long time. I haven't played this guitar much at all in the last 4 years because my goal and focus has been on playing fingerstyle acoustic stuff. And over the years, I just let that in as being okay, But because I spent some time on this instrument and this guitar in particular, I knew what it was capable of. I knew the sound. I knew what inspired me when I wanted to play it. I knew something came in my head that needed to come out like that. And this rhythm we're talking about is a perfect example. It really lends itself well to flamenco and these kind of really spicy, fun rhythms. It's way easier and better to play on nylon. But because I know that, it's like I don't want to I'm not going to sell the guitar. It's too important to me. I just know that it's there for me when I'm ready. So if you're out there and you have a bunch of guitars like most of us, to me, my ethics on guitars was that they all should do different things. I'm not someone to collect 5 Strats just for the sake of having 5 Strats. Each of my guitars are very kind of specific to a certain style of playing. But that's just me. I get inspired by that. If you get inspired by the look of a Strat and having three of them, in different colors, by all means, hopefully they inspire you to play that. And to me, it's okay, as long as you know that they're there for you for that specific purpose. So again, hopefully that makes sense. It's something I wanted to address because along with practicing, and that's something else you could do to incorporate in your practice. Maybe use a different guitar and see what happens. I have a Dobro upstairs in my office, which is more for slide guitar. I haven't played it in probably a decade. To me, it just looks cool sitting on the wall, and to me, that's just fine. But whenever I get inspired and hear something super cool with slide or blues or whatever, I'm saying, hey, I need to go spend some time with that slide guitar that I have. So that can be inspiring, and it could help spice up, your practicing to say, hey, what happens if I practice this? Sometimes it's fun just to sit with the guitar and just play. Again, going straight to the playing part and see what happens. Play the same thing that you would play on one instrument, even if it's not really meant for another, and see what happens. Okay, that's what happens when I adopt this technique from this guitar to my nylon or to my acoustic. All right, again, it's not really meant to be that aggressive, but it sounds super cool and it's inspired me to play something. So again, that's kind of the bulk of what I wanted to talk about, as far as practicing versus playing. Again, be structured. Find a time that works for you where you will get focused time in. For me, that's the morning. First thing I do in the morning, grab some coffee, sit with my guitar or piano for a good half hour. And I know that I will start by practicing songs that I'm working on, things that I really want to get better at, and then maybe for the last 10 minutes or so, just kind of say, hey, whatever comes out, comes out. I'm just going to play. That way I kind of hit both things. And then maybe in the evening, if I get a longer stretch of time, I'll sit and just jam and come up with stuff. All depends on what I'm feeling at the time. Right now, one of the things I'm working on is getting better in the world of writing and composing for film. And that entails a lot of strings, a lot of technology, because everything's inside the computer, a lot of cool stuff, gadgetry. I'm like, if I were to turn this camera on, you'd see a whole world that's just a bunch of cool stuff. But I'll show you that some other time. So, and a good example of this was in my practicing time, I was sitting there and learning how to use all the string samples. I wanted to know how to use a cello as it's presented to me inside the computer and with a keyboard. I want to know how to use the synth so I can come up with really cool bass synth lines and all these things. And when I wrote, there's a film project that I wrote a piece of music for that was for a character in a movie. It was so exciting because it was almost like playing for a week. I only had a week to write this piece of music. And when I wrote it, every part came to me, and I didn't struggle to find out how to create what I needed to create. Because I practice all these things, I'm like, oh, this needs like this cool deep cello to mimic a bass line. It happened. I just knew how to find that cello. I knew how to program it so it had the same bass line, and it was there, and it was done, and it sounded awesome. And it was a great achievement for me because I could say, all right, I'm going to celebrate this because I knew I practiced how am I going to come up with these sounds for a long time. And then when it came time to play or create, I didn't have to think. It was just there. So that's the goal. When you're playing, don't think. Let go. See what happens. Celebrate when something really cool happens. And the more you do that, the more it happens, okay? Cool. If you guys have any other questions, I'm going to jam for a little bit longer and just have some fun. But again, to plug the guitar sites, because both of these, well, this main topic is covered on both sites. And I talk about it in depth in emails and videos. But again, I love talking about it, and it's important. So I wanted to do it here. But anyways, I'm going to jam away on this last groove called Spanish Groove. And this is from, there's a backing track on Rock Guitar Power called Spanish Groove. And it's also part of the Guitar Pro Jam, which is in the monthly membership there. And in that Guitar Pro Jam, I teach you every little in and out about how to play this rhythm. And then there's a whole bunch of really cool guitar licks that go along with it that I teach you. So if you like the way this sounds, like when I'm jamming and soloing, I'm just kind of coming up. I'm just playing. I'm improvising. But there are a set bunch of licks that I came up with, and I'll teach you every one it's inside of Rock Guitar Power. So check that out. Stay in tune on the emails for when I do these. I'll announce the replay of this and future lessons. And if you have questions, email them in. This is how I find topics to cover. So you could always hit me up at mike@rockguitarpower.com or mike@superguitarlicks.com. Okay, enough talking. Let's jam and play some music. So This is going to be again, and all I'm doing here on my phone is I'm on the Rock Guitar Power site and on the section for backing tracks. All right. And I got it pumped through the whole sound system here. But again, there's a backing track called Spanish Groove. This is in the key of B minor. And basically, if you don't know anything else other than your minor pentatonic scale, start it on the 7th fret and just play it and have fun and see what happens. Okay. So let's see what happens. All right, guys, there you go. Thanks again for watching. I hope you all have a great night. Again, keep in tune to rockguitarpower.com, superguitarlicks.com. Stay in touch on those emails, send me questions, and keep an eye out for the next live guitar lesson. All right, guys, have a great night. Go play some guitar. Later.